take longer than usual. Okay, I'm supposedly live.
Well, and it was confused too. Where?
Yeah. So good evening, and I'm gonna do what I always do and advertise this to a few other places.
Oh, that's the notification I got that you are live.
And Kathy's to my right. I don't mean that in any way.
Well, I referred to myself as the troll on the right, so.
She said that she was the troll on the right. She's guarding the bridge.
Yeah, I need a toll.
It's a little slow right now, I think, with
Alright.
the way my website's working. So hopefully it'll still come out okay.
Hi, old school Dave. Ooh, it's cold. Hello, Finch. Hello.
Hello, Finch. Old school Dave. Yeah, good to see your faces, even though I don't see your faces. I see your faces with my mind, I think.
Do you?
Yeah,
What do they look
I don't
like?
know. I don't know.
It's kind of a
Just
setup
like
question.
it's a person. It's like I'm just, I see, I, I think we can communicate, our spirits can communicate, I think.
I
If,
think that's
you know,
valid.
that's put out by them, I imagine. And whatever next level mind we have in common, whether we identify it that way or not. We're all part of the collective consciousness, right?
Right. That's what they say. Lots
Mm-hmm.
of
Lunacy
things.
or not.
Lunacy or fantasy.
Lunacy or fantasy.
Stay tuned. We're about to dive into it.
Yeah, and I wish we could carry it on with that kind of mystery, but I don't know if I can continue
We are
that
professional
without
YouTubers.
laughing.
Laughing is good.
Yeah. Okay, so where am I here? Let's see.
Where the
Okay.
We were all over the place today. I was in Oxford, Ohio. I was in Harrison, Ohio. These are all very exotic places. Don't come for me, Oxford, Ohio. There's a big school there. And they were graduating. Oh my god, I'm totally rambling. You need to start talking.
I'm just preparing the chat with a format I can read, and I gotta change it to live chat. Just trying to do all these little tiny jobs.
I start school tomorrow. Social informatics is my first class. I can't even pronounce it. It's gonna go
Social
swimmingly.
informatics.
And how it relates to artificial intelligence. But that class may change as well as my major. Because you know, when you go to college on a whim, things change.
Yeah, everything's loading slow.
Hello, Joseph Coates. Good luck, Miss Kathy. Thank you, old school Dave. My first class is 6 weeks, so I figure I can get through that, and then I can get through the next 6 weeks, right?
Got these notes because we wanted to start. I'm saying start because there's so much in this tape. I mean, all these tapes are this way, but it seems like they're getting more and more. It's like,
I know, right?
right? Like every little
Yeah,
point is like, wow, wow,
super
wow. In my
valid.
mind, you know,
I agree.
yeah. So,
For whatever
so,
that
so I wrote
means.
this as this live stream is about responding to trying to pass along what uh, we both got. Well, I got, we both got, 'cause we're both listening to tapes together, obviously, and and trying to get as close as you can. I look at my notes and I think, why do I have to say this? I want to play it. I really want to play it
Well, don't get
because,
hung up on that and just.
yeah. Anyway, but I can't get hung up on that. So,
I mean, you can, but it's.
but then again, I know that the next level doesn't miss a trick when it comes to. They don't do tricks, but in terms of what's best for us, and this must be right for now,
That's right.
and so that's my attitude.
It
And
is what it is. You get what
so
you get and you don't throw a fit.
yeah, okay, right, right, sure, that's right. Everything's like that, right? You can have that attitude about everything, pretty much. But so this tape was made. It's number 259, and it was made on July 7th, 1987.
Joseph, you just listened to it, right? Isn't that who's.
Yeah, Joseph told us that he had listened
So
to that last live
I was
stream.
like, we cannot let Joseph have one up on us. We gotta catch up.
We got to catch up to Joseph. Yeah, there you go. I'm glad. I'm happy that he's
It was
listening
funny.
ahead of what we're doing, because then he can, when we talk about it, he can actually be our check partner and say, "Wait a minute, did it say that or this or and just and with his own understanding interpretation, of what he heard, and it's really good to see that. I like seeing other people's computers working. Uh,
That's
so anyway,
right. What does he say?
um, yeah, I brought it up the last live stream, laughing out loud, and
Thanks.
9 says, "Are the tapes not publicly accessible?" They are actually, most of them, but there's over 900 that are. So that's a big chunk. And there's probably only 1,086. Is that what the number was? I keep getting mixed up now.
1066.
1064?
66.
1066 was it?
Yeah.
Okay. That we understood from Mark were,
No, from court documents.
well, from court documents, right?
They said that in court.
But Mark said that to this on this live stream as well.
Yeah.
So
Anywho,
anyway, so yeah. Um,
just do a Google search, Heaven's Gate audios, and see what comes up.
yeah. Yeah. So the so the outline for this that I created here on my screen. I don't know if you all can read it because it might be too small on a phone or something. But so is I'm just going to read it because that's the content of this meeting. And so and this is in the words of the class. Which I don't know if they're ever going to get to a place to where
Anyway, just read it.
that whole thing is contested. That I have
Wow,
the right to
what's all those words?
post it.
Steve Jackson. Hello, Steve Jackson.
Okay, well, let me see. There's a bunch of stuff here. Hi, S&C. One thing Doe said that troubled me from the final video was that he stated that if anyone watching wanted to join them, they could, as long as they exited their vehicles immediately.
Okay, now go back to, and then go to his next comment.
Right? That would seem to play the face.
Play in the face.
Play in the
No, no,
face.
fly in the face of.
Oh yeah, play. Okay.
Well, he corrects right
All
after.
right.
So that would
Or
seem to
fly in
fly
the
in the
face
face
of
of the
the
fact.
fact that anyone would need training to exit their vehicles
And enjoy the next level.
and enjoy the next level. You can see this comment anytime in the first half of the final video.
Yeah, I think we both. I could be wrong, but I think we both know what comment,
Yeah,
what statement you're referring to, Steve.
yeah, yeah. That right in Doe's final exit.
That, I'll be honest with you, that troubles me too, Steve. But I think that I know, and I could be wrong, but I think I know how Sawyer is going to respond to that. And then I'll shut up.
You don't have to shut up.
That's okay.
Um, well, see, the whole thing, the whole picture, uh, of course, if there's no truth to any of it, if it's fantasy, um, uh, don't don't we all have the right to whatever the fantasy is
Well,
if we're
but
not
answer
harming
that
anybody else?
question seriously, though.
So that's a big question that people can have debate about. So I mean,
But if
it can,
Joe is.
you can always say that something somebody is doing is hurting somebody else, so therefore they shouldn't have the right to do it. But how does that work really in reality in the human kingdom if everybody did only what others told them to do? Uh, instead of pursuing life the way that they want to understand what this mass of reality is that we're within. See, it's just uh, um, anyway, but not to get into that right now, but more closer to the. So there was. So the reason they posted the opposition against suicide was not like a play on words in order to be funny, or to be witty, or to be. I don't know what the different responses would be to that, but it was to tell the truth about what they actually knew was the truth. Now, someone else isn't going to know that truth until they go somewhat down that path, and the next level gives them a little dose. And then they'll get a sense of it, but for that moment, and they may not carry that sense beyond that, or they may grow that sense. Anyway, but that's the seed processing thing that happens with the next level. And so, right from the beginning, the next level teaches that you're going to have to give your all to the next level older member representatives. And souls learn that from a previous experience with those older members, thousands of years ago. And all those souls are potentially back right now. And this is all consistent with Jesus' teachings, but they didn't justify anything they did by what Jesus said. So, even though they knew that was the record that was left for them and us to use for this time period now. Anyway, so the position against suicide, the reason that that's true is because the human kingdom is different than for uh, next level members and the students, that the souls that are returning to take vehicles over in order to complete their graduation requirements, to work on spacecrafts as big as laboratory sized spacecrafts as big as the planet that can't be seen by humans, but it's physical, very physical. And the crews that are working on those with all kinds of things, hundreds of tasks, I'm sure, that are interesting and all that. But so anyway, so the requirements to become a member of the next level is to continue to rise to the occasion, to fill your mind with next level mind as you go. And we don't know what that is until we actually pursue that, and that's what the quest for truth is, I believe, on this planet, ultimately. And for those that seek it and those that don't, if somebody doesn't seek something, then they're not going to get the benefit of what that seeking can lead to. And Jesus talked about that too, of course. But so so we're humans. I don't dispute that I'm a human, and I've got all the characteristics of anybody else, pretty much. I mean, we all have little varieties of them, right? And positives and negatives in the ways
So
we.
that are you gonna that plays well into Rakoti
Yes, it does.
and him, saying that Rakoti didn't like him saying that Rakoti was just a human.
Right on the tape.
Yeah.
On tape 259,
Yeah.
you can hear Doe talking about Ricody, who was at the time was outside the classroom for the third time, I think. Doe
Yeah, that's
said
what
in
he
that
said the
tape,
third time.
and and so he talked to Ricody and said to him, if I remember correctly, I'm just repeating what you were saying in case they couldn't hear you that well.
Of course.
Uh, but that Ricody was potentially not from the next level. He was a human, and and since he wasn't from the next level, he was doing extraordinarily well.
That he was a very special human.
Yes, he was a very special human.
To be able to get that far.
To be able to get that far, right? In his growth, being in the classroom, because of all that it takes, and and it's.
So perhaps we're just only humans too.
Well, yes. I mean, I can't take that
You
for
can't,
myself.
but we can who have not physically
Yes,
sat with our older member.
that's true.
As opposed to and there's several tapes where Doe is talking about I am not going to take my physical life until I get undisputed, undeniable proof from my older member that that is what we are to do.
Right. That's right. And that's a process. That's
And I've struggled with that and what that understands. Yeah.
right. It's when you recognize enough of your older member's mind to where you you can have a sense because they give it to you.
Represented by this sphere.
Right.
I don't know if you guys can see that.
They give each person. Well, actually, over here is going to be more in the center. You want me to put that on there again?
Well, hold on. Let me see if it comes up. It takes like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you can do it again. I'll do it. The sphere. You search through the tape log for sphere if you don't know what we're talking about, and you can hear a tape that talks about what the sphere is, and it's a little metal.
They can see it. They can see it just fine.
Composite metal ball that's got like a stainless steel look to it,
Steve Jackson says,
chrome look to it.
to be fair, Sawyer, I think you're dodging it by dancing around it. I don't intend any disrespect. It was by any measure
I haven't finished.
I know, I'm just saying. It was by any measure a call to suicide, given to the fact that no one who is out there he was speaking to would have had any kind of training, again, to what you guys have, and would be unprepared, in my opinion. Given again that Doe was speaking to the human kingdom into the camera, not to the next level or any of you. But Doe was speaking to everybody. There was nobody excluded when Doe was speaking. He was speaking to the next level and to me and to you and to Sawyer and to all of the prior class members. In fact, that was primarily, I feel, and I could be really wrong about this, who he was speaking to was the former class members that had been in the class and who had left.
Absolutely.
But he was also speaking
It's
to,
very evident
like
if
I
you listen
said,
to the audio tapes.
everybody on this planet, all humans on this planet, and all souls on this planet, whether in a physical vehicle or outside of a physical vehicle. All souls can hear uh, audio. They can hear us playing video, you know, they can hear. So
Because
whether they're in a
they're
physical
right.
vehicle body or not.
They're frequency beings in physical bodies. They're like it's like a plasma kind of
Anyway, the
physicality
point is that he was speaking to
that the
everybody.
mind is.
There wasn't anybody excluded
We admit it.
from that. And the fact that there are 12 hours of Beyond Human where Doe goes, it takes 12 hours to explain the I'm just going to say quote unquote philosophy or the religion, the belief system of the group. It took 12 hours to do that. Actually 13 hours to do that. Where, you know, somebody could sum up Christianity in, let's say, a sentence or two sentences or something. Like, you can't sum up the belief system of the Heaven's Gate group in a couple of sentences. It takes 13 hours for the leader of that group to sum it up.
It's true.
And
That's
whether
part of the
people want to
summary.
say that's rambling or, you know, whatever, it you can't, like,
You can let
it's
me.
not
I wasn't
something
beating around the bush. I was giving
yeah,
the
it's
truth.
right. And
Because let me
it's
just
not
finish.
something that you can just sum up and, you know.
Let me just finish that part
Yeah, I'm
because
done.
there's two types of what they called, what humans call suicide, and one is when a human wants to leave because of they want vengeance against somebody or their health is failing them and they just want to get out of
Yeah,
here
yeah.
or
You don't
all the
have to
different
get
reasons that there are. And somebody
So
took
that's
their
it.
favorite
That's
tennis shoes,
you don't have to. Yeah.
whatever it is. And those are the wrong times to commit suicide because there's a
Those are not
lesson,
appropriate
actually
reasons.
an actual lesson to be learned by having experiences in the human kingdom and graduating out of thinking that I'm going to get rid of it or I want to get back at somebody for something. You know, uh, so that's why it makes sense that that wouldn't be something that anybody would want to do. And to think that any of the vehicles among those 38 plus 4 or 5 had some kind of death wish or something or weren't um, conscious of what they were doing because they were mesmerized is stupid.
Well, that's not what he's
It's literally
saying.
stupid to think that was the
He's
truth.
saying he's
I'm
asking
not
that.
saying he's saying that. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not talking to you, but
Stay
I'm
on the
talking
track
to
of.
a lot of the people that would have the similar kind of comment that you left. But I'm not judging you, and you have the right to that comment,
Well, it's trying to learn.
and your analysis of it is fine, and your certainty of it, the way it came across, was evident in my mind, and that's where we all can get off track all the time, is when we think we see it all, when we think we know the ultimate bottom line on something like this. But the second kind of leaving your vehicle by your own hand uh, is the way that they describe that it would be suicide to actually stay for them because they were with their older member and they said that they knew it. They proved that they knew it for years' time. And and of course, you know, very few people know that. because very few people actually listen to the tapes where they would be on, and those tapes are actually being kept from us.
Anyway, don't.
But that reminds me of that those tapes are being kept from us right now. That would show the students speaking, because Kathy's my witness that there's more and more students speaking after T left. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
Well,
No?
you were there, so.
Yeah, I never
Uh,
thought of it that way,
but
because I'm
to
not
me, it
really
seems like
trying to.
there's a lot of students speaking in the earlier tapes as well.
Yeah, there are. That's true. I don't know
But
how to compare it really. I
but
shouldn't be saying that.
it's different conversations being had after T
Mm.
left. So
And that's a good, interesting way to put it. Different conversations, Kathy was thinking of it as. And yeah, that's certainly true. And you can hear Doe lamenting over it. All the conversations that he was having in his head every step of the way with what with the person that he thought was still his older member, and then recognizing the difference of when his older member wasn't in his head, and then recognizing the difference when uh, um, uh, he could actually feel a presence of his older member in the room, and wanted to see his older member's presence, wanted to see some physical sign, and that it didn't happen, and then he felt like his older member was sorry, I think, that it didn't happen, but it had to be that way because that was not the right thing to happen at that moment. For Doe to actually see something physical, and he imagined seeing like the whole room lit up, right? Some
yeah,
way,
right. That's right. I remember that now.
and that didn't happen, and uh, but I think it did happen. I think that was a big physical show that he gave him, but gave it to him in a way that the vehicle doesn't interpret necessarily as the physical presence, but in reality is the physical presence, because it's probably got a chunk of mind in it. It's got a blob of mind. It's got a digital, object,
Don't get behind on the
or
comments in the chat.
a plasma-like object encompassing a database. So I don't know if I finished with that though, because I want to make sure I do. I don't think I did. So why is it that it would have been for them suicide to leave? Because they had vanquished the humanness out of them enough.
You mean suicide to stay?
Yes,
Or I don't know if that's
and
what
they
you
had
meant.
another
I'm
task
sorry,
to
I
do.
shouldn't have said you mean.
They had other tasks to do after that, and because their minds are real, their souls are filled with the mind from the next level enough. Not totally, because nobody's got it totally unless you're in the next level. Then you got in your vehicle, you have a total whatever, but that also has to do with how much mind you've actually built within your soul body, because every person is going to be a little different in what in the pluses and minuses. I don't know about the minuses so much about that in terms of the next level, but on the human kingdom, there seem to be minuses built into the soul that become corrupted. The information is like there's a virus in the database, and
Hyper
it's
Baroque is here. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just sitting here going off in my own brain, and you're right in the middle of saying stuff.
yeah. I'm going to get back to it, but because so uh, it's hard to recognize what doesn't exist to our eyes and ears and other senses. And unless we're open to it, it may still happen to us, because the next level has ways of helping humans wake up to what's that they can't see and identify as reality. And they do that with science fiction. And they do that with all kinds of things, the inventions and everything. Is all brought on by the next level to help upgrade. That's why it happens so fast.
Would you say that sometimes you don't know the answer? To like, questions like you are not going to have all of the answers, everything.
No, that's right. There's no way we can get all the answers. Uh, well,
Like it's hard to sit here and say with some like Doe meant this when he said, a call for people to join, follow, to learn the information as quickly as possible. That the window, the time was short, or I can't remember his exact words.
yeah,
But
because he was who
because
he
people
is.
have asked Sawyer that in meetings and in the live stream, and like I feel like, not that it matters what I feel, but there's a point where like Sawyer can't answer these questions, and yes, he was in the group for 19 years, but is he qualified to answer what Doe meant when he said that? No, he's not. He can explain what he thinks Doe meant, and since he was with his older member physically while Doe was incarnate sitting across from him in the same room, and interacting on a daily basis in some cases for some points of time, not all the time throughout those 19 years, but he has that experience that he can speak from. But he doesn't really know 100% what Doe meant by saying that. And does that mean that Doe is saying for all of us to take that action and call a call for, mass suicide of all the people on Earth that follow the teachings of Tian Do? Because that's a question that I've struggled with myself. Um, and I struggle with talking about this stuff with Sawyer because this is personal
Well,
information of just personal doubts that I have with like how can you believe in a cult that they killed themselves and
oh yeah.
the leader asked for everybody else in the world to kill themselves and they
They did
asked
not ask
you
everybody in
to.
the world to
I'm
kill
just
themselves.
saying that's something that is a thought, that's a doubt,
But I don't
that's
want to say it in that way because that's not
because
true.
that's not politically correct.
No, it's not true. That everybody, they didn't have in their minds that that would be the right thing to do for everybody. In fact, they had in their minds that it was just possible that there might be some that were ready
Well,
to
the
follow them.
question asked was how do you explain Doe saying, if you identify with this information and you want to follow us, do it quickly. That's like seems like a pretty
Well,
clear
he also
thing.
said in that those final exit
So how
that
do
you
you
should study the
reconcile that?
information
Right, so study the information. Does that mean
and
for
see if you
years and
agree with it.
years?
No, see if
Or
you
does
agree
that
with
mean
it.
like I got a feeling and I believe this and so let's hop off the wagon. Let's hop off the earth and go to the next level.
Well, but in the process of studying the information to see what you believe in, I'm glad you brought that up. If somebody actually thinks about that and they read everything, and they keep on having thoughts, though, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, I don't believe that, which is going to be very easy to do,
Yeah.
then they're going to recognize that that's not going to accomplish. Leaving isn't going to accomplish them getting on board the spacecraft. Leaving it that necessarily. I don't
Well, I
know
mean,
how they
I've
might
come to
store the
the,
soul.
from all of the information that I've gleaned and the hours, thousands of hours of research that I've done on Heaven's Gate and personally experience things, whatever, moments, communication, if you will.
In this, mm,
I've come to the conclusions that I've come to.
which should be a growing conclusion if it's
And that
worthidar.
conclusion is that
I think as
it's not
everybody.
it's not a call to
Oh,
suicide.
that kind of conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the conclusion that I've come to. The conclusion is that time is perhaps short, and I think the more people that know this information, the better. And that is what my intentions are. And I feel like whether people believe it or not, or ridicule it or ridicule me, I care, but I don't at the same time. It's just I just want you to know about it, and
Right.
you can do with it what you want. And if
Right.
you have questions, ask, and I'll answer.
And if it's
If
a
you're, you
fantasy,
want to ask me, but
then you won't fall for it because you can't fall for this
like
as a
people like to
fantasy.
follow Buddhism, or like they like to
I don't
follow
think.
Christianity, and they think about the teachings that those religions have and those ways of thought have for them, and it helps them through their daily lives when they like their refrigerator breaks in their RV like ours just did, and guess how much it's going to cost to replace it? Over $3,000. Woohoo! We don't have $3,000, so guess what? We don't have a fucking fridge, and all of our food, it's like all money and blah. So how are you going to handle that? Like as a
We
Buddhist, you may be like, I'm going to sit here and meditate and like chill the bleep out, and like as a
no, they
Christian,
don't.
like
They
maybe
go
you're
and
going to
fix it
pray,
if they
or
can, or they
I'm
work.
just saying there's like different ways that people want to go about
They can
how
think
they
of it that way,
handle
right?
stresses
Right.
and
They can look to
unexpected
their idea of God, and
catastrophic
that
failure of appliances.
that might be handled by a crew in the next level, handling that grade in school
Right,
or
so we
whatever they're
look
in.
at it the way that
And that can be anywhere in the planet,
helps
all
us
different grades in
get through
school.
that
It's not different. We're not talking about people in India being a different grade. It doesn't work that way, as far as I can tell. You never know what organization of humans or cross section of the human kingdom is under what kind of guidance from the creators of this planet and the life forms on it. And see, I'm just talking. I mean, I know this is like philosophical overview, and that's fine. But some people can hear that there's some common sense in what I'm talking about. I think. I can't imagine that with everything I see in this world happening. Uh, you know, all the life forms on it, and all the variety of life forms on it, and stratas of understanding that we know we don't see it all. We keep on seeing microscopes getting better and better. We see telescopes getting better and better, and we see more and more every time they get better and better. And then there's all this other stuff, and the way the human body is built, and you say happenstance, happenstance, just kind of like the worm choosing to go down this path or this path, or that one, you know, and that's going to lead to something that they're going to crawl and make legs. But yeah, there's evolution built into the material, so it's there for the evidence. But anyway, the
Hey,
vastness of this
Carlody.
environment is proof itself
Okay, we should hop to
of a creator, in my opinion.
There's lots of things going on in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Hyper Baroque, hello. Dennis Ostergen, hello. Nine, hello. Megara, hello. We are okay. Meg Era 1989.
So,
The book is Megara. The book is on heavensgate.com. You can download. I think it's a doc file. I don't know if it's PDF, but you can download a copy of it there.
it's a text file.
text file. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's got no formatting in it at all, and it comes
Hello,
actually as a
strange
zip
and
file
scary New
initially. I
England.
think it's a zip file that you have to unpack
But you can view it
into
on
the
the
text
website
files.
as well. But I don't think that we're once the lawsuit is resolved, or maybe before, I don't know. It'd be nice if we could, you know, purchase extra copies of it and then sell it to people for exactly, what we purchased it for, so it's easier to get. Because it's easy
Plus our
to.
costs for doing so.
True, we would have
We
to
always have to
do
recover that.
shipping,
That's
but
the next level
if we
away
were
anyway.
able to get it, like if Mark and Sarah just gave us like boxes of books, then we would just be charging, well, whatever they would need to cover
So,
their cost, and
yeah,
then what we would need for shipping and handling. I'm not saying we've had a conversation that way
yeah.
as far as
No, I don't. I
how that would
wouldn't
be
care
possible,
about
but it
jacking
is
it up.
it is
No,
unreasonable to have
I don't want to make money
expect
that way.
people to send cash, whereas we are set up to accept Venmo payments.
Yeah, we do
I
for
don't know why
some of the
Mark and
shirts
Sarah
that
don't do it that way, but they have
we
been court
originally
ordered
sold.
back in 1999 not to sell anything. So we have a feeling that that may be why they do all those transactions in cash, although a court would know that they're selling the book. So I don't know. It's all crazy.
Okay, that's going down a rabbit hole I didn't think we were going to go through.
Yes, hello magic made
So I
me.
won't.
Truth everlasting. Hello. Should we be sending humans up to colonize Mars? Sure, why not?
I don't care what they do. I don't. I don't think if the next level lets them do it, then they're going to do it.
Yeah,
They're going to try to
Carloti
do it. The
says
space aliens want to leave the planet.
Carloti says each individual has to decide for themselves what dough meant, and it's not appropriate to try to make someone else tell one what dough meant.
Let me correct myself. The space aliens want to leave the planet, but they also want to take this planet over more and more and keep it
Mm-hmm.
for as long as they can. And because this is the only place that they can use to actually build new technology
Oh, Joseph Coates is in the park
and try to get
playing
vehicles from
drums. That's
and
great.
genetically engineer things and come up with virus, simple ways of correcting uh, disease and stuff. That's all part of the space aliens program, I believe. As with the people that are going underground in the human kingdom and building their underground facilities in order to escape whatever might happen on the surface. To be
Sorry
able
I
to.
took over the chat. I just like ran through
I'm glad you did.
all
Thank
of it
you.
really quick.
Thank you.
But
Because
there is a
I'm just over here babbling, so.
you're not babbling. There is a
Um,
question from Dennis.
well, I'm schizophrenic, so I know that.
What's your
But it's consciously schizophrenic. It's
what
not. And one side isn't. Which gets to the point of one of the points here about seeing the darkest side or the
Okay, but what's your personal view? Maybe
not
since there's a lot going on in the chat,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
we should,
All
'cause
right.
that can lead to other things.
All right.
What's
Cool.
your personal view on science in general, as in what we as humans has agreed upon as being the truth, whether you buy into the scientific model or not?
There's certainly a lot of science that's been happening that's from the next level. They gave humans the sciences. Otherwise, humans wouldn't have it. They wouldn't be thinking in the ways that we have since the early 1800s, or it's been a development. And there's a lot more science to be had
It's all
that
it's
humans don't know how to interpret.
ever evolving.
Yes, it's ever evolving. Like, for instance, it made sense to me when Tiendo said that the next level communicated with humans by thought through radio waves that they haven't given humans the ability to transmit and block. Well, maybe they have the ability to block it in some ways. I can imagine, but and I think that does happen.
They
But
just can't even tune into it.
yeah, but people just can't tune into it because it's a different frequency, and our brains aren't receivers enough, and our minds aren't developed enough to be able to perceive uh, some things. But then some minds have developed to see things that otherwise other minds can't see, like auras or or what people might think of as discarnates, vehicle,
Glimpses.
spirits, minds that are outside their vehicles that still have a plasma-like physical component.
Sorry.
So I forgot what the beginning of that was, though. The response to what was I trying to respond to? The sciences and
Yes, the scientific model
um, so there's a lot of science that people don't think is science, but I believed was possible that I saw then working, and some people can call it the placebo effect. But how do we know that the quality of mind doesn't have degrees of quality to it? And in other words, degrees of force and degrees of power. It's like one person might be able to send a thought out that can actually influence other people with that same thought more than other people can send a thought out that might influence other people. But it may all happen in degrees, for everybody maybe in different ways that we influence each other. The way that birds all change their direction in 1 second. Less than a second. It seems. Well, I don't know what the
right.
time frame is. It seems like because they're all in tune with the mind of that lead bird. I think. What did Doe say about that recently that we heard?
Don't put me on the spot.
Okay, well, Kathy remembers a lot of things that I don't, so
Sometimes I
sometimes
do.
from the tapes, and
I'm
vice
gonna go
versa.
back there and eat my cereal.
Okay,
I got 30 minutes of biscuits
enjoy
left.
it.
Yeah. I can only eat for 30 more minutes.
So, um, and that's one of the things that T and Doe brought updates to. That this wasn't talking about a etheric kingdom, even though there's a truth to the etheric kingdom. Thoughts are flying through the air all the time. I don't know if they're more dense in some places than other places, and the type of thoughts can be even generated by thought generators that the space aliens seem to have the ability to do. I don't know if they do that because they are souls at one point that were members of the next level, and so their thoughts actually do have more power than a first-time human that, or and a human that has a deposit of a next level chip set, like a a like an implant, and the space aliens they have a facsimile for the next level implants. The next level doesn't. Well, I don't know. I don't think that I can't say doesn't, but they don't they don't interfere with the body when they put a deposit of a soul into that body. Well, I mean, it is interfering with it. Uh, but they don't give it to a human unless the human, in some way, is asking for it. That's what I'm getting at. And that's even evidenced uh, in this tape. As, okay, right. So the bullet point on my screen is not right to prompt someone to say something. Individual must exercise the thirst and see the value. So a person needs to have the thirst to get anything. They're not going to think, you can tell them till they're blue in the face and you're blue in the face that they need to go to that treatment center to get rid of alcoholism. Okay? And unless they actually get to the place to where they say, help me. And that's what's so good about the 12 step program. It gives them a direction to put their hope in. And that hope is in what they called God. And it's true. Because the next level can tap into any of us based on the strength of our asking for change or for growth. And yet people will say, well, how did he get that free will to just ask that, right? Who knows how he got it? Doesn't matter how he got it. Is one response that I feel to say, and I want to know if I am not expressing it in a way that Doe would have me do in this circumstance with my limited capacity. Because I do have a limited capacity. I'm not just saying that because of humble humility kind of stuff. I know when I listen to those tapes from Doe, I'm in awe of everything he's saying. His every word. I'm still in awe. People ask me that on the screen. You know, what happened when I first went to the first meeting? And I didn't know how to describe it for a while. But then it was that I just was like something. A light was turned on in my head, or around my head, or somewhere, and and it. But it wasn't a light that convinced me of everything. It was a light that everything they said made sense to me. It just made sense. It just was like, wow. And yeah, was I gullible? Of course I was. I still am. Because I can even believe that the next level uh, can be working with any human on this planet, and they may be doing the best that they can do, according to the next level's judgment, even though from the human kingdom's perspective, they may be doing a horrible job. Uh, and that they, even with the horrible job, they're doing things that the next level can benefit from, uh, so that the human kingdom can thrive to become more and more the best it can become, to become vehicles for next level souls to be deposited in, that can actually begin to recognize the truth from the next level as reality. And that uh, we get huge opportunities when older members take vehicles in this planet's atmosphere. I mean, there's no way of describing how big of an opportunity it is, because they bring all the thoughts of advancement with them. And they come as crews ahead of time for who knows how long, maybe constantly. I don't know, maybe there is a dark period where they remove the lower forces, and that's what's depicted in Revelation 12 as the being as the well, Revelation 20, I guess. No, yeah, I guess it's 20, where Lucifer is described as being locked up. And 11 is where Lucifer is let out of the. So simultaneous to the two witnesses, Lucifer was allowed to come out. I don't know, what that period of time was, whether it was hundreds of years and before. That's kind of what I uh, tried to come up with in some way, in some general way, with my book. That I spent far too much time on. I know I could tell when I was doing it that I would spend weeks with the timelines of history, trying to put everything into a category that would be in those seven trumpets. And uh, you know I feel what's happening now. Uh, uh, well, it's not an accident to me that uh, everything that happens on the next level degree of thinking and mind and behavior is a part of that too. It's a big part of that. It's the biggest part of it, probably. Well, I don't know about that, because mind over matter is a matter of uh, um, learning to, you know, work with the vehicle. Um, the vehicle doesn't want to be angry all the time at itself. So, you're getting mileage out of the vehicle if you can, find compromises with your vehicle. And, have treats and things, that's part of that. Anyway, so that's a whole nother subject. But, uh, so, well, let me get back to that point in the tapes. Not right to prompt someone to say something. Not right to prompt someone to say something. Now, this came from the context of this is, I think, wonderful to hear. I shouldn't say I want you to hear it because I don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. I don't want you to do it if you don't want to do it. I mean, really. I used to say that I hope that you would do it, and maybe that's even inappropriate, but I don't think so. I don't think that's uh, inappropriate from the next level's point of view. But but why do I hope that? Because you're going to grow from it, or you're going to reject it even more, and even become adversarial to it, which I think would be sad. Because then you'll be, as a soul, um, with whatever vehicle that I might be talking to right now, would be thinking that you know better, and really, we're not capable of knowing better than the creators of this planet, and even identifying anything that's greater than. And that's where this point goes to our lunacy or fantasy, because Doe does go into that dark place, and you can hear him going into it in this tape. But you need to hear it actually from his voice if you are ready to take the full dose of medicine. And it won't be more than you can handle. But you might be disturbed from it, but if there's next level mind in you enough to where you can recognize your older member enough, then you'll think, well, maybe I'll take a chance on the positive, which is a saying that came from Tiendo, and I won't worry so much that, and then so now the people that the voices would come in and say, see, you're this is the danger of you talking about this, because eventually aren't they going to go, get rid of their vehicles? And I can absolutely say that. Um, well, I couldn't say anything's absolute. See, that's the thing. There is that danger, but if they're that shallow of a mind that they could just listen to something and go off and not be so at least wondering about whether that's true, and allowing their brains to open up to think, I wonder if that's true. Like that T-shirt that we were trying to, and, and we want to be able to give away to people to wear. Why? Because I think that's something that I want everybody to have the opportunity to do, like Kathy was saying, is take a look at that way of thinking, which they made it very, very, very hard to do on purpose because they don't want it to be easy. It's not easy. Overcoming the human kingdom is the hard. Darwin would say this. He said it's the hardest thing a human could do, and I didn't believe it. I mean, it's not that I thought to myself, I don't believe that. No, I didn't think that. What I thought to myself was, I don't understand that. I don't think what's. And I thought about that quite a bit, in a sense that I didn't feel like I had it that hard. I don't think I was the person that was hanging on the edge of the cliff by my fingernails. I thought my mind had a pretty good handle on things. But that's the kind of condition that shows somebody that's really dealing with the boogers. And we all have that because we're all really dealing with boogers, whether we know it or not, I believe. And I think the evidence for anybody that goes through it and starts to think like this about the mechanics of it can recognize that we're all being given help to grow in stages, like waves, and that it's been accelerated. It really accelerated with the beginning of the new age, the, the new 1,000 year period of the millennium. And you can see how that trickled down into the computer world, with everybody with the Y2K, which I almost got a job working on a program for Y2K correction, which wasn't hard code, I don't believe, to work with at all. But but I didn't get that job. But they were in big demand because they were paying big bucks for that. And they did have some things they needed to change in all the computer systems. Otherwise, they could cause faults and bugs and things that would fail. And maybe the whole Social Security system was written still had that problem. I don't know, because they talked about how some of the years weren't computing, so they didn't really know what year somebody was, and so they just calculated it as 120 or something. Is that what you told me, Kathy? Years in the dates for some of the people in the Social Security system that they didn't have the age for, and would just default as some number. All right. Or if that was part of the misinformation that was given when, because right now you can go to one side of the coin, so to speak, and you can get all this stuff, and depends on who you hear and who you listen to, what you're going to get, and then the other side is the same thing, but one side's acting from a defense perspective, and the other side is acting from a offensive perspective now, kind of, and yet there's all kinds of in betweens. Anyway, but not right to prompt someone to say something. So we don't want to put words in people's mouth. This is a way of the next level. We don't want people to think the way we think, and Doe talks about this in this tape. Um, and so if they're not asking for it, like the example of this, which I have to get into a little bit, but in the tape you're going to hear talk about Soyoti and Mercody. Mercody is the individual we know as of Mark. In 1987, that apparently I didn't remember this until I heard this on the tape. That that I revealed, I spoke up to how I got a lesson from the way I talked to Mark in the Help Wanted meeting that Mark was having for his difficulties in the classroom at the time. Which happened right, I mean, I don't know if it's days, weeks, months, maybe the most, before he left. And Sarah left with him. So, what I apologized to, in a sense, because I said it's a good lesson for me, and Doe didn't say that it wasn't, he would have. So Doe didn't bring it up at the meeting, I don't, in a specific way to me. But he did bring it up in a general way, right? That Yeah. So what did he call me? I mean, what? I don't mean don't call me, but how did he refer to? Or how did I refer to?
Don't ask me, babe. Look at your notes.
Oh, I don't want to take the time to do that.
Well, that's not.
The instigator, the propagator,
No, I don't. You need to look up your notes and what you wrote down.
because you don't remember it.
Well, I don't remember it word for word, and that's what you want to say. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying to
I'll
look
look
it up.
in. All right, I'll look into my notes for it. All right. No reason I can't do
I
that.
thought like that.
Audio 5, I mean, audio 259 notes.
You should. I thought you had those up for things to talk about too, right?
I had some of them up.
Ah, I see. You should have had that part up so you knew they talked about it.
I know.
Anyway, let me berate you on your own live. See how I do you?
Oh, well.
That's what happens when you have a gold digger girlfriend.
Swyddy. That's my name in the classroom, right?
That's my name. Don't wear it
And I
out.
can't find that name in here.
It's all the way at the end of the tape. Go to the end of your notes.
All right. All right.
I know you like those keyword searches.
I'm looking through it. I'm looking through it. He went through a lot of question and answer at the end. Oh, there's me. I'm in here as Soy. SWY. Okay, now this is my poor notes. I couldn't even understand myself. And then when we turned it up, I could understand some of it, but I couldn't follow my thinking. I can't even follow my own thinking. Oh my gosh, what kind of person am I? Anyway, so here's my notes. Is the method, I guess. Oh yeah, because I'm referring to Doe talking about how to accomplish something by saying that wasn't telling somebody what to do. The point of the lesson was that when we were trying to help another classmate and Doe was trying to help us, he's not trying to tell us what to do because he doesn't like telling us what to do. It doesn't. He doesn't get anything from it, and yet I was telling Mercodi what to do, and I don't remember what the words were that I used, but I know during the help wanted meeting, I know that I have that tendency sometimes to entertain that influence of
Playing older member.
huh,
Playing older member.
playing older member.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, playing older member, and I guess anybody would be doing that. And Doe talked about it as well. There's some circumstances where exorcism is what that would be. It's where you're giving. I was kidding around that humans would probably call it tough love, among other things. When you're commanding somebody to do something.
Driving the influences out.
Yeah, because you're driving the influences out. And I remember Tiendo telling us about this guy that first named them with those Tibetan names. His name was Norbu Chin, and he would use daggers to attack people like on a table or something, as if he was going to stab them, and to try to shock the influence out of them. and that probably works sometimes. I don't know. I guess it depends if the person really thought that guy might slip or something, or what method, how far he would go. Anyway, but it depends on what the influence feels is going to happen, right? Because the influence would have a program. The discardant influence would have a program in it that you wouldn't want to get stabbed, and so it might work in that regard. That's a spiritual way of looking at it. But one of them, I guess. So I think what I said in the meeting was that uh, how I felt at the time, I was thinking at the time, was there some way to help Mercody? I might have been a main perpetrator of that, meaning using that method that wasn't
No,
from
you
the
were
next.
a main perpetrator of instigating the method of exercising
That's what I'm
the
saying,
demon.
because it wasn't the method that Doe ever used.
Well, but exercising your own
Well, yeah.
influences, he said that that was
Oh,
a method that you guys were to use on yourself,
right. That's right. Thank you for reminding me of that.
on your own.
Right. What he said was that he can understand having that method of getting rid of influences by telling them what to do, telling them get out, or being angry with them to get out, or or negotiating with our vehicle, to get them out in some way. But because you don't have to think badly of the vehicle. But that exorcism is something that we were being taught to do with ourselves. And so he understood why uh, I wasn't the only one that was doing that. I was of telling Mercody what to do, like saying, "Well, why don't you just get out of the if you want to get out of the classroom, just leave the classroom." Something like that. I don't know what I said exactly.
Oh,
Right?
that's what Doe was saying. People, you might as well say.
That I might as well have said that.
Not you, but just everybody in general.
Everybody in general might as well have been saying, just get out of the classroom if you don't want to be here, if they were choosing not to live by certain procedures.
Right, and that would be for any class member.
Right. And that was true. If there was a procedure, and this can look awful trivial to somebody, right? But it really came down to whose mind you were going to trust. Because if you didn't trust those mind with the instructions and the procedures and the ways of thinking, then and if you weren't wanting to open up to trusting his mind in all those ways by actually doing the procedures, then
It was time to go.
it was time to go. It was time for you to have another experience because it wasn't working in the classroom. And that happened with a number of class members that Doe felt and they felt needed to have a different experience to learn certain lessons. And the example of Riccati, the example of Sunodi, the example of Starodi, well, no, maybe not Starodi, the example of Branodi, the example of Justodi, and the example of Silvodi, and the example of,
Okay, I think that's
I can keep on going. Andodi, Soyodi, Pamodi, Arthodi, Havodi, all the former members. Monodi, Carlodi. We all have um, that got to a point to where something happened or a series of things happened that uh, we were able, not able, well, we didn't rise up to handling in a next level way by looking to the influence instead of looking to our older member's mind for what might be could have been a solution to our whatever dilemma we were facing. So giving up on that and the ramifications then are the same kind of things that happened with Adam, to where he went off track from what his older members wanted for him, and so the older member said, "Okay, then you got to do it. Here's a helpmate, so you can have what you want." And then here's life in the human kingdom where you're gonna have to grow your own food and everything. Yeah, right. But it is the same kind of thing, I think. That the next level gives us what we want, and then hopes that we're going to reach up to them to not want it anymore, but to want only what they want for us. And the only way we get that to that place is by going through having what we want sometimes, and then losing what we want a lot of times. And that becomes the greatest tests to each time it happens, in whatever degree it happens, in whatever way of describing it. And we need our vehicles in order to go through that. That's why we have a position against suicide. I wasn't beating around the buck at all with that. You're seeing it that way. That person would seem to be seeing it that way because that's what's coming through them at the moment. Okay, I'm not going to try to psychoanalyze. Anyway, so what did I need to get back to? Oh, the chat. Thank you. Carloti's here. Hello, Carloti. Gosh, there's a lot going on. Okay, I see Hyper Baroque. Hello. Oh, no, it's 9 that's responding to Hyper Baroque. Right, right. I saw that from Hyper Baroque before there. Sorry, I just didn't. I was spacing out. But then I wouldn't be getting them in order. So I'm getting to it. I have plenty to say about the scientific model, which would reveal holes in it. But I still look at things as I see them, says Dennis. And Megan says, ooh, I'm on. We all do that, I think. We look at it as we see it. But um, whatever the scientific model is, as you're going through it, I can't imagine that you don't see things differently all the time. In little ways or right, that would be the scientific model, right? To be open to discovering new ways of thinking. Woo, I'm on when you're doing a live. Oh, I see. You're alive. I find it all fascinating and have watched as much as I could. And the book Heaven's Gate, America's UFO Religion. That's the Zeller book, right? Hope you're both okay. Oh, okay. We're asking where you can listen to tapes. That's when you said, yeah, you said you can go to Google and do a search or YouTube or whatever. I've seen Beyond Humans here. Let's see. I can't find a way without posting cash to USA, which I don't think is wise. Well, you can download the book, so I understand that. Um,
That's awesome that they listen to
yeah,
younger people. The tapes are definitely the next step for sure.
yeah. Well, the book itself is not in any audio form, right?
I don't believe so.
So,
We were started working on that, but they tried to.
so you could potentially download the text and then put it in an audio form,
Well, I don't.
and then for your own use. I'm not saying you hadn't thought of that, but I just thought of that now. I don't think I've
Well, I
told
don't know.
anybody
I
that.
mean, that's until I don't know why you.
Yeah, I know it could be used
Well,
against
there I
me.
have copyright, so don't
I,
suggest.
but the copyright on the book is
I
it's
know, but I'm just saying, don't suggest people to do stuff that.
yeah. Well, even if I lose, they'll still be within their copyrights of using the book, unless the courts and the president come out and say that Mark and Sarah are the only ones to have legitimate copies, and you can't have it. So then, if that happened, then
There's a lot going on in the chat.
heck with it. There's only so much. I wouldn't be doing these streams if I was afraid of every little thing. I think, babe.
Huh?
Never mind.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's all right.
I was getting distracted reading the chat.
All right, I'll go look back to the chat.
I'm just saying, it's good to address people while they're still here.
Joseph Coates says, "What, in your opinion, do you think class members would do if the next level were telling them that their family would be strucken down?" Well, okay, from the human perspective, um, well, hypotheticals are pretty silly, I think, Joseph Coates. In my opinion, I don't know. I know you probably mean it. I don't know because how can I can't. Well, I don't know. Why would the next level say that? To, the next level aren't. Um, I don't think that doesn't make any sense to me. I can't put any of those connections together. Because it's the definition of terms that is the biggest problems. Who the class members are, and trying to guess what they would do if their own older members in the next level were telling them that their family members would be struck down. Or what does that mean, struck down? Like the next level would tell them that these family members over here need to be wiped out because they've become evil, right? Like Sodom and Gomorrah story, maybe. What would the class members do? Well, they wouldn't be their family actually doing that. Their family wouldn't be involved. Their family is they're members of the next level. Class members are members of the next level. Because we can't use that terminology and expect not to apply what they believed to that technology. In my opinion, yeah, in the way that the gardener grows the garden, human vehicles are made to actually expire, and that's not like a mystery, right? So, but I mean, it's a little twist of thinking to sometimes So it's hard for me to um, but see that um, why would the next level do that anyway? I don't know if they do. I don't know if the next level has a tornado and one in particular that they want to run through a certain area, and you can say, oh, that's evil. Then you're saying that those people were evil. No, maybe they were blessed with getting out of that vehicle so they could take another vehicle and overcome it better. That's from a next level perspective. They may be ahead of the people that didn't go through that in that circumstance. We don't know how to judge it. Humans that think they can judge it are only guessing. I'm guessing. But I'm guessing from a perspective that was given to me from the next level, from T and Do, that made sense to me and still does make sense to me as the greatest view of reality I can imagine. And T and Do said things where they changed things, they said. And they said, we think this is such and such. They said that about souls. They said that all humans didn't have souls. And I remember thinking about that. I was going to work at the time, working for an out-of-craft task as a cook in a country club. And I remember seeing the humans walking along the street and thinking, what does that mean? They don't have souls? And I was thinking, do I think of them any differently? And no, I really didn't think of anybody differently. When I went to my job and I was working with the chef and the chef's son and the other people in the restaurant, I wasn't looking at them. Uh, it was just like, I mean, even if I was looking at them as not having a soul, I wasn't judging that they should be doing something different than what they were doing. And that I had the truth and that I was going to try to share it with them. But our task wasn't to share it with them. And so I didn't. I didn't stimulate conversations in that regard. Things happened with people with their out-of-craft tasks, and exceptions were made. But in general, that was the time period where we didn't want to stand out as being different. We weren't proselytizing. We weren't trying to get new members at all. In fact, members were leaving, and T and Do were sending members outside the group, and halfway situations. Many times that happened. All different kinds of configurations and different time periods, right from the beginning, from 1976, when 19 was sent out of the classroom, because T and Do felt like they didn't make the first cut, were the words they used with us, who remained. And some of those ended up finding their way back to the next level, back to the T and Do, the classroom, when we were in Amarillo, Texas. And Durody showed up at the job where Norody and Sonody were working, at a hospital there. Out of the blue. He had no way of knowing where we were. But he went out looking for us. And there's hundreds of experiences that you would find out if you were actually quizzing each of those students, of things that happened that some people would say, oh, that's coincidence. That, I don't know. It's, it can, a lot of things in the world as well, and how the world is affecting us, and the things that are happening simultaneously to people in terms of surfacing their, whatever they consider to be their dirty laundry, and bringing it out, even though they know that it's not going to be popular, which I don't recommend doing to the government, by the way. Jesus talked about that too. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next. Okay, this is from Megara. Also, I believe they all believe, so I think it's disrespectful for anyone to call them names or belittle anything. I think it is also disrespectful. But they don't, it's like Jesus said, they don't know what they're doing. That's the only way, I think, that's the next level way of seeing it, I believe. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because if they knew, then they wouldn't be doing it. I mean, that's the actual truth. That's the reality. If there's somebody that you really respect and like, and you're not going to say something terrible to them. But with next level members, when they're incarnate, they look like humans, but their mind is greatly advanced above human, the real ones. And even when the space aliens pose as avatars and things, and preachers in different religious communities, uh, then that that can be a lure. But at the same time, the next level can use it because they'll see things in it that don't work for them. And that even happens within the next level classroom, to where some of the members are thinking about things and saying, "I'm not with that. I'm not down with that." And they may know that that's a negative thought. That's not trusting in their older member's mind, and yet they won't be able to avoid having it in their mind sometimes, because the next level is actually helping us have those kind of things to overcome, to separate those that are truly willing to put out the strength of mind to block those thoughts, from those who let that linger in their minds as, well, maybe I do feel that. And then seeing through that lens other things that happen that end up becoming additional evidence, red flags, that humans would call red flags. They could use the exact same terminology, but they won't know that it's totally different when it comes to Tiendo as opposed to everybody else. Everybody else that's been focused on in the kingdom that has led people to their leaving their vehicles in some way, shape, or form, you will see many big, big, big differences. And yet at the same time, you will see, uh, you'll be able to equate being the same because of one's limited perspective of the scope of activity and the ways and the behaviors and everything that are being taught and used, and the lack of evidence of theft or misleading or manipulation or uh, um, determining a Luciferian, uh, or or abusing, or there was no abuses. You don't think that there would have been a bunch of dropouts that would have been talking about abuses? They talked about other things over the years, and you never heard anything about an abuse of any kind. Nobody was physically banished from the community that had the opportunity, that didn't have the opportunity to. I mean, banished is the word for it, but that's not the way they were treated when they left. I know I was present when Flexodi left and others, and I had a meeting with Flexodi, and then two members of the class drove her to the airport because she wanted to go back to where she was living at the time in Missouri, where she had grew up, I think. Well, maybe not. I think she actually came from California originally. but uh, maybe married a guy in Missouri, I believe, or whatever. I don't know how she got there originally, but I was there, and she was sad about leaving, but she knew it was the right thing to happen. And she went on. I met with her after I left the classroom, and she loves tea and dough, and she expressed that in one of the early documentaries, maybe by the BBC originally, that was played in different channels, where she held up the book from the New York Post, and she said, "No, no." She just, in general, was saying she doesn't agree with this portrayal of tea and dough. And a number of others that uh, even the ones that went against, as I talked about in previous live streams, uh, were for what people would compare to the human kingdom and the other cults and the traditional cults that were no longer cults because now they were the main culture of humanism in all its different characteristics. Throughout the different nations and languages and everything, and it didn't demonstrate any of those things that are brought against them to show where they are bad. You didn't have any of those things. You did to some degrees, right? If you want to look at it that way, but you're not actually seeing the full picture. You're seeing a very limited view of it. If you were listening to all the audio tapes, you could even grow to recognize how much made sense to where you could actually, by osmosis, become a person, a spirit, a soul that could recognize an older member and do the finishing touches to that can be major, uh, but that you're able to mount with the strength of your mind so that you can become a member of the next level. And then you'll recognize that our entire reality is like a biological kind of, with everything else in it, hologram. It's the holodeck where you actually really do suffer pains and you do have joys and you do have all the human experiences and you get into things for the first periods of time or because you can skip grades in the 12th grade school and you can go back in grades and those grades representing lessons to learn. Like, you should not kill is a lesson to learn. You should not kill other humans. And that lesson still isn't being learned by people building weapons to, kill other humans with. Even though humans can justify it. But it was interesting how I was trying to figure out what the next level would do with a violent person. And then he started for years, because Tiendo said that there were other things to do with a violent person than to end their vehicle's life. And and then they started coming out. It wasn't that long ago, maybe a year or two or three ago. I started to hear advertisements for the stun things that were sending a dart into somebody that's giving them I forgot what you call those tools. Yeah, I guess giving them a hot flash with electricity, right? Some voltage that stuns them so that they can be handled better, like they did with animals.
I'm in an actual hot flash like I've been experiencing for
Really? Maybe you're getting a dose.
every day from, I don't know, starts around, what time is it now until the next morning? 10 to 12 hot flashes.
Wow.
Menopause.
Yeah, Kathy's vehicle is going through the menopause.
It's awesome. Lots of lessons.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. We get our share.
What are you
You
gonna
know,
do?
fortunately, well, we feel the next level helps us.
That's right.
We do. We feel we see the evidence of it.
They only give you so much you can handle.
Right. They only give you what you can handle, and they want us to grow stronger and have stronger minds, and to deal with what's happening is part of that, and not freaking out, and taking breaks from it is a good thing, I think, because
I'm freaking out, man. I'm freaking out.
because if you listen to the same things over and over again, it takes its hold.
Oh, sorry.
Whether it's right. You can hear Kathy in the background freaking out. That's why we want to make a movie. We can put some humor in it too.
Kathy is funny. Oh boy.
So the next level waits for us to ask. So that's what I should have been doing in the meeting that I had with Mercodi while in the classroom in 1987 that tape 259 talks about. So uh, I guess I won't go any further than that on that subject, except to say that we don't know that there's not influences that want to play to that. Or my character is irritating to somebody who experienced that. Or, what is that?
It's my water.
Oh,
But the ice was pretty much melted.
oh yeah, but it's still cold. Boy, that stays cold a long time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
3 days, 3 or 4 days.
It's not been 3 days. We just put new ice in there last night.
So that we can have more things.
Yay! Yay!
But we
More
don't have to do.
Christmas.
We won't have to do it all the time.
We
That's the bottom
have,
line.
we
Because our
have.
refrigerator broke, so we have to. Within our budget, we hope we can make it work without working double shifts at the end of the week, end of the month. Anyways, but
The car's telling us we need an oil change too. I forgot to look.
really, is it?
That's how
But we still got the other thousand, two
we got
thousand miles.
2,000 more miles. So
They say every 5,000. I keep on hearing repeated. So
no, 5,000 is too much. We went through 5,000 miles already. So we
no,
can
that's
go.
3,000. The
The
initial?
car is already acting like it wants oil.
Yeah. Well, it's getting older.
So
All right. All right. I guess it's just the way it is.
anyway,
You can't use it and abuse it and not. You can't use it and abuse it and not have to
you have to
give it
maintain
its fuel,
or else it
proper
breaks.
fuel. Otherwise, things break down faster. So yes, that's true. So it could be penny wise, pound foolish, which I sometimes can be.
But it's all right.
Well, I used to do my own oil changes, but now I'm too lazy.
Well, we can't. We have to put the car if it's too low to the ground.
It is too low to the ground.
So if we could do it, you would.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Damn. Another hot flash.
Right, Steve Jackson. He might have also been talking about former members, essentially, which is more the case, actually, in reality, because he didn't think that anybody from scratch was going to see him at all as somebody to look up
You
to.
don't know that.
Well,
You can't
except
say that.
when some time passes,
Yeah.
right? The first time, like you were exposed to the story, was like at a rave, right?
I wasn't exposed to the story. I just saw his face.
You saw his face at the rave. You
Yeah.
didn't know who it was.
No, it was over the satellite.
Uh huh. But see, all that has stages of.
That was in like 1990 something. Like I said, I don't remember. I graduated high school in 93, and that's when I was going to raves and stuff. So, like I said, it was like the Beyond Human at some point was piped into a Kansas City rave. That's insane.
I don't see it reckless at all. But, I got my opinion. And see, to not be specific when he was, I think we can all agree, speaking to the larger human kingdom.
I think we already covered that.
Yeah. Anyway, I won't belabor it, but that was the one statement on the table. And there were, I do. Okay. And I don't agree, but you have the right to feel that. I'm not taking disrespect. I mean, your opinion is not. Good afternoon, Sawyer and Kathy from Strange and Scary New England. Good afternoon to you. And Joseph says, I wonder what Rio's stance is nowadays. I'd be interested to know where his head is at. I don't know.
All right, so let's move on.
Right. I'm not going to say any more about it.
There's a lot going on. We don't know.
Exactly. To Kathy, whatever you said a long time ago. I don't recall ever hearing Doe say the entire population would need to do that. That's true. Of course not. Yes. Not in his mind at all. I mean, they talked about how when we were going public for the second time, they said, well, what if a lot of people respond to our meetings? He was thinking about basically setting up an organization to where we'd be teaching the next level behaviors and ways. It would be like a foundation.
Right.
It wasn't.
You guys talked a lot about that. If it should be a church, a
Yeah.
monastery, like an Alcoholics Anonymous, a Sexaholics Anonymous. Like,
yes.
There's a lot of tapes going over that.
Yes. I see what you're saying, strange and scary. Carlotti says each individual has to decide for themselves what Doe meant, and it's not appropriate to try to make someone else tell one what Doe meant.
Yeah, we
read
that.
And I understand that Sawyer doesn't know what Doe thought. I accept that, and Sawyer can't be held accountable for answering for Doe.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
That's right, I didn't know what Doe was thinking.
Yeah, because
I can only go by the words he used and everything that he said over many years.
Right, your 19 years of experience.
And his documents in the Last Chance to Evacuate Earth, where he talked about the 3 kinds of humans that...
I know, but let's go ahead and...
No, I want to say it.
I'm not...
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm just saying go ahead and say it. I just didn't want you to get too far off track.
All right, I won't. I'll try to keep it short. You can help me keep it short, because I do want to keep it short. But where he said there were 3 types of humans that could go with him. To go with him. And
or had a future opportunity at being saved.
Yes, that's right. That was going with him. That was in his keeping. That was in his...
Yeah, but when you say go with him, when you say, that could potentially mean people think you're saying commit suicide and go with him to the next level like all the class members did.
No, because the 3
I'm just saying that could sound
I know
like
it can
that.
sound that way, but the reality of what those 3 were was three different groups of people. The first group of people were those that were with him. Okay, they were going to literally go with that soul. And leave those vehicles and then be on the spacecraft together at that moment. And and then or whenever that moment took place after they left those vehicles. But the second group were those that recognized their older member, but um, knew that they had weakness, and they would also be saved for a future opportunity to continue to grow towards next level membership, adult membership. And the third group are people that never even heard about Tiendo, and that could be somebody that was
And
going
there's
against
some
the government,
separating from,
but not violent, right?
or even,
Separating,
or yeah, just separating from society and separating from the world.
yes. Separating from the world in their own way is the way that it was worded. And I believe you can hear that talked about in one way in the Beyond Human series. I don't remember which one it was. And you can hear that in Last Chance to Evacuate Earth, I believe, and maybe even in Planet About to Be Recycled. The only way to survive is to leave with us. See, that thinking was us always represented all the minds, all the souls that the next level determined were going to be in their keeping, and that the rest would be recycled in some way. And that, we don't know what the limits of what the next level is going to save. So to speculate on uh, um, that as an interpretation, I don't think is an interpretation unless you want to look at 5 examples that say the same thing and think that that's an interpretation. I don't know.
Interpretation.
That's my interpretation. Which I could go on and talk about.
Yes, what was the next
But I'm
thing?
not going to give any more examples.
Just so you get caught up in the chat. Because there are quite a few questions that
We don't need to
we
agree,
didn't
Steve
get to.
Jackson, on all these things that you want us to agree on. You can call them excuses, but responsibility for words is important. I think so too, and that's why I'm being responsible with words on showing exactly what Doe is saying. And I don't know, you said this a long time ago, so maybe you learned something about the perspective on that Doe had, that we can deduce was his thinking because he said it. We have it on record. And you can see he talked about throughout the audio tapes.
Yeah,
well,
on to the next thing, because there's other questions besides that.
Yeah. Should we be sending humans up to colonize Mars? Okay, we already talked about that. I don't know if there's any should-bes on that.
Well, what do you think about that?
I think I already talked about that.
Did you?
Yeah, I said I don't think there's a should-be to it.
What does that mean?
That the
Do you
next
think
it's an opportunity that the
should go to
humans
Mars or
want
not?
to take. They want to do it, so they can do it if the next level allows them to do it. Whether the next level allows their vehicles to live in that kind of atmosphere for very long, I don't know. Or if they live in that atmosphere for very long, then they're going to be there for the rest of their lives because they'd be so depleted that they would be like, mush when they got back. See, humans can decide to go to Mars, and they would be considered a hero, knowing that they probably weren't going to return. They would be killing themselves to go to Mars. Humans can go to war and lay down their life for somebody else, and that's considered a hero in many circumstances, even if they were misled to be heroic.
Anyway, that's, yeah. So you're
So
in
strange
favor
and
of
scary.
people going to Mars or not?
No, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't.
You don't care.
I mean, I'd like to watch it. I'd like to see what they do on there.
Okay.
You
On
know,
to the next.
that'd be fun to observe and keep up with.
right? Reality show.
Yeah, right. Let's go to Mars. Why don't they do it with droids and robots?
Yeah, that's a way to use
They
robots
got
and
artificial intelligence that can
send
dissect
them up
everything.
there, analyze it,
If it's got the capacity to.
compute.
It's very limited. Artificial intelligence is very limited,
Okay, anyway, on to the
in
next
my
stuff.
opinion. Magical and made bigger than it is. Not that it can't be a dangerous thing in a lot of circumstances. Yeah, sure it can. If it could be made to push the button on nuclear war,
All right.
magic made me, especially if we're living many lifetimes. Well, right. My understanding from T&O is nobody knows how many lifetimes they're going to live. Many experiences, right? But it seems to be that the way they said it was it seems to be in this civilization that it's taken a number of lifetimes, or even 3 or 4. I don't know what. Then if there was a number to it, what they said, I don't think they put a number to it. They didn't try to appear that they knew things that they didn't know. You learn that from the audio tapes as well. If you're aware of it, if you're open to seeing it.
True.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. You would be lovely to have the book.
Yeah, that yeah.
I'm not sure what book that was referring
The Heaven's Gate book, but that's a
to. Oh yeah, I have the physical copy, right?
we've already talked about
Yeah,
that
we
ad
already talked
nauseum,
about
so
that,
let's
so I
just
won't go back to it.
go on to the next.
Making coffee. Okay, thank you. I just wanted uncomfortable to send cash in post from
Right,
UK
that's about
to
the
USA.
book again.
Oh, okay.
Like as far as the way that Mark and Sarah have it set up.
Yeah.
So let's move on because we've already talked about that.
All right. Yeah, we can't put the book out. On a lighter note, speaking of science, did the class ever attempt scientific intervention of experiments as a class project or goal? Never thought about that before. I'm not aware of that,
What does that mean?
except for the making of movies. I guess, depends
Like,
on
did
what
you
you think
guys
of
have
as
like
science.
chemistry experiments? Like what
No.
lab experiments? Is
We
that
had lab experiments, but they weren't like
Like they're
experiments like in a human lab with, test tubes and stuff.
Yeah.
We were using
I
different,
don't know if that was what the question was.
we were growing, right, I don't think that's what he intended.
That's what I did. I thought it was like I've thought that too. Like, were you guys, because the way that some of the terminology is, like, the experiment
We had
one and
behavioral
experiment
experiments.
two. I'm talking about when you're eating. Didn't you call the first
Yes.
experiment one or
Right, that's right. The names of the meals
yeah?
time,
So that's
the meal time actually was called
experiment. And then
experiment 1 for
it was
breakfast,
like the fiber
2
lab
for lunch, 3 for dinner.
and then there was the fiber lab and
Fiber
the
lab
nutrition
for
lab.
laundry.
So that
Lab for the nutrition lab near the kitchen.
for kitchen. So that kind
Yeast
of
lab for making bread and pastries.
so that wasn't in the kitchen.
No, that was in a well, if we had a big enough kitchen, yeah, but
But so that kind of conjures up in your mind images of like a laboratory space.
right,
And then you're talking about experiments of food, so
right, because the experiments were considered to be like the recipe was a formula. They changed the terminology because how our minds identify with our old terminology, and we have to actually exercise our minds to remember the new terminology, which then identifies that mind as coming from our older members, which is not only coming through the terminology, but the way they think about that terminology. So food wasn't thought of as like a social experiment or a social thing to do, to get together with people. Yeah, or like a sensual experience to where you were getting the tastes and the the smells and everything, and it was like a really enjoyable experience, which it
It
should
was
be.
considered as fuel.
It was considered as fuel, exactly, and and so you wouldn't put the fuel in the car while the car was moving. So the instruction was to sit down and do nothing else except consume the fuel. And the fuel should be prepared in a way that if it's supposed to be hot, it's hot. If it's supposed to be cold, it's cold. If it's supposed to be,
Kept at a certain
if it's
temperature.
got blemishes off of the fruits and vegetables, get rid of them. If the grapes look like they're starting to get sour, then cut off the bad spot if you can
Okay.
see that. You wouldn't just throw it out because it had one bad spot on it. You would cut it off and still take use of things. And flexibility was built into things. It was a big key word, and thoroughness was a big key word. So that you started a task, you completed that task, and they compared it to being like an orbit.
Quickness.
There's a lot of I could keep on going for hours. I'm not
Yes.
going to
No.
with all the behavioral kind of experiments that were happening.
Yeah. That's true.
That were natural, that weren't contrived, that had a value, that had a function to them.
So it wouldn't have seemed like a traditional lab experiment. Like when you said behavioral experiment, that conjures up a whole different kind of atmosphere of scientific exploration.
Right, like putting up sticks that were touching each other all around the borders of our campsites where we were in the national forest or the BLM land to represent the boundaries of our little spacecraft and in our thinking, and that we would once in a while go around that board, walk around it, not in a ritual or anything, but as we felt to throughout our day, washing our dishes and doing the things we do in a campsite,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, thinking, I want you influences of the past, influences of, condemnation of somebody else or judgment of somebody else or all the negative influences to get out of here. Stay out of this area. This is my space. And putting that up, and we can't imagine how that could actually be literally what the next level does, trying to keep influences away from us at times
Right.
because the force of their minds has grown so strong that it actually has enough power to move that plasma energy that are the thought forms and have a wall to them. Because that's the wall that they're teaching us to create in our minds to stop the negative thoughts that occur to us in our minds. And
Yeah.
Doe talked about this in the tape as an example of not acknowledging violent influences. Not acknowledging violent influences. Because in a previous meeting in 258,
Mm-hmm.
Sorority and maybe Soyoti to some degree,
Yourself.
yeah, I think it was Soyoti,
You are
myself,
Soyota. It's
myself,
confusing when you say maybe Soyodians.
began to express having thoughts that were, and someone else I think said something,
That we wanted to, yeah.
that we were seeing some influence wanting to harm Doe,
And you wanted to protect
and
him.
we wanted to protect him. And Doe didn't say anything during that meeting, but the next meeting he brought it up as one of the points to get in the beginning of the tape.
Well, he did say that you could be, on the right track with that. Like I believe he said that about what Sorority said.
But that it was not good to voice it because it gave strength
Yeah, after
to
thinking
that
about
influence,
it after the meeting.
right?
Yeah. In tape 259, I believe that's what he said. I could be wrong. I just remember like he did address like what you said and what Sorority said as far as wanting to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he told you he didn't think that was wrong to want, to have that.
Is that when he said, "I'm glad you thought that way," or that
I
was
don't
the other one?
recall that,
Oh,
but he
okay.
did say that, because you thought that it was an influence or something, and he said, "Well, why would an influence want be telling you to protect me?" An influence wouldn't say protect your older member.
Right, because they wouldn't relate to the older member at all. The older member would only have the thoughts in his mind and about certain things. He would be blocking those things,
But my
even
point is that
automatically.
he did address,
Yeah,
you guys saying something
right.
about that. But anyway, go on. So I didn't get you too far off the track there.
Well, that's okay. I'll go back to the chat.
I don't know if you finished what you were wanting to get at with that.
Truth Everlasting says,
That's a nice
"Oh
name.
yeah, we did computer science as well." Right, that's true. We did a lot of computer networking, and not everybody. It wasn't like an assigned task. And Steve Jackson says, "Well, they did web work and internet work." That's true. Oh,
Is it our favorite scam likely?
yeah, probably.
They call us so much.
Yes, I meant, did they try any novel laboratory type, for lack of a better phrase, science, not computer work in HTML, etc.? No, I don't think so. Then Steve, Strange and Scary. Okay, they're talking between themselves. That's cool. Strange and Scary listens to Doe tapes when he goes to sleep. He has
I
a
do.
relaxing voice. Kathy does as well.
Yeah, I love it.
Him and Alan Watts, very relaxing voices. Oh, okay. Is it fair to call you guys apostles? No,
Yeah.
we're not apostles. We don't have an assigned task. Well, we do in a sense, though. If we believe it and we believe what Junodi wrote, that getting the information out is the task that returning souls are having the opportunity to do in order to show the next level our our loyalty, and serves by helping other people become or look towards Tiendo more and more, or even just better themselves in ways that the next level would like to see. Do you have any belongings that were Doe's? Yes, I have a robe that he gave me while I was in the classroom. It's got multicolors. There's a picture of me somewhere with it.
And that recipe for disaster short that we clipped out of a video, you're wearing it.
Oh yeah, the Recipe for Disaster music video that I did with the little band that I'm a part of.
That you
Still,
were a part
Little
of.
Green, that I was a part of because I don't live there anymore. But if I went back there, I would play with them, I'm sure. Anyway, so
And also the shirt that Carlotti.
oh yeah, Carlotti had some shirts given to him, I think by Doe.
One shirt.
Yeah, and Juan already had a whole bunch of things given to him, but not clothing, I don't think. But he had away team patches given to him, and Beyond Human tape, master tapes, and a website, heavensgate.com, the code and the data for it,
Okay, let's keep.
which includes the book. And he was also
Uh,
given the original green books.
you mean purple books or blue
No,
books?
I mean blue books. We call it blue books,
They weren't.
as opposed to, not opposed to, but uh, uh, different from the one, is it, uh, the version that Mark and Sarah published, or the instruments of the publishing of,
They were. Anyway,
which they made purple.
because that was T's favorite color.
Carl already says that I'm hoping it goes in a museum.
Because he was talking about the shirt. So you've missed some comments.
Oh,
I don't know if that's. It doesn't, it was a while ago. He brought up the shirt as well.
oh boy, we're slow.
That's why I was trying to move you along.
It must have jumped because of somebody adding one. You know how it does that,
Yeah.
and I lose it sometimes. I'll go back. Apostles. Do you have any belongings? All right, I read that one. Okay. Uh, Carlotti says I gave Sawyer and Kathy the shirt that Doe wore in the Beyond Human series.
In one of the sessions.
That's right. And yes, I remember that. I won a coin flip with my partner Sky for it, he says. Cool. Thanks for that update. I know you told me that before. I didn't remember it. Um, yes, it was nice of him. Carlo is hoping it goes in the museum. That's what he was talking about. Okay, the shirt. Great. Put it in a big glass frame. Yeah, there you go. Exactly, strange and scary. Oh, that's the name of the person he's talking to. I'm sorry. You can just say strange. Oh, never mind. They're talking among each other.
And just saying, the strange is saying.
Strange and scary says you wish you could hear Kathy.
That was before, a long time ago,
Oh.
when I was in the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
So you don't.
Oh
have to
yeah,
put the
she
mic.
went to the restroom.
I didn't go to the restroom. I was just doing things.
Oh, she was just doing things back there. Okay.
Anyway.
Because I thought you could hear her when she's
Yes,
sitting
you
right
can,
here.
but yeah, that's why I was saying that was a long time ago. Not a long time
Steve
ago.
Jackson says, Carl Odie, may I ask what your Odie name stood for? The CRL portion.
Okay, let's move
we'll
on.
go down to see if Carl Odie said anything.
Well, let's just move on to the next thing in the chat, because I don't know if Carloti answered that or not, and I don't know what the CRL
Carl
portion.
Odie stands for Carlin. So you did answer it later on.
Perfect. I didn't know if you did or not. So I didn't want you to lose your place,
Yeah. I'm back to it. Okay, so Homelander says, Sawyer, I've been meaning to ask you a hypothetical. Do you think the class had the thought that if Doe was wrong and there is no life after death, they were still okay with their decision? Oh, well, yes, in a theoretical framework. And they had, 1987 is when the first time that I began thinking, while I was in the classroom, the first time I began thinking that it didn't matter to me, that I just loved being with Doe. And I don't know how my vehicle could have changed if I was there after 1994. It's always possible. I could have thought of it differently than I did in 1994, which I thought I was ready to leave. But see, I was coming from a defeatist point of view at that time when we had that meeting. That, oh well, I'm already feeling terrible because, I had gone off the wagon. And so that probably wouldn't have been the right time for the next level, wouldn't have let me in that condition stay in the classroom if I continued to have that influence with me, that I was working on. Having influences with us, we all have, according to T and Doe's teachings. So that's not like saying that we are surrounded by evil. You were surrounded by an evil spirit. I could hear that voice.
Doe even said in this tape that he didn't know if what he was saying was coming from him or an influence, and one specific spot.
In one
Not,
spot.
yeah, not the whole tape, but just this one. And I can't remember what he said after he said that, but that just goes to show that even Doe in 1987 was struggling with influences, as we all do, because they are a part of this planet, period.
Right.
So if anybody is walking around thinking they're not dealing with influences, they're wrong.
Right. And they'll find out if they want to.
Even Jesus dealt with influences.
Yes. You can see his struggles. Those were generated
Everybody
by
deals with
influences.
influences. So to walk around and act like you're not, and that you don't have to continuously question yourself, then you're off track.
But the next level will find ways of putting you to the test
That's right.
because they want you to actually
Lots
realistically
and
be
lots
thinking.
of tests.
Yeah, well, they
Just
want
like
you
we're
to,
getting every day.
to know what you know and know what you don't know.
And be able to apply it.
Yeah, yep. So Muhammad says, if I
Hard.
joined,
What would the Odie name be?
let's see, yeah. Well, Homelander says, this isn't a loaded question. I truly ask it in good faith. I know of Christians and people of other faiths that have asked themselves this, so I am just curious.
What's the question?
It must be referring to still okay with their decision. Yeah, I don't know. I hope maybe I answered it the best I could. I'm not sure where to go with, because I don't remember what. If you can put a recap of that comment, Homelander, in here, if you're still here, I'll try to talk about it better. If I join, Mohammed, if I joined, what would my name be? How did they decide the names? My name is Muhammad. Would I be Mahodi? There's nothing to join. There's nothing to join. So that's, you can do what you want with your name any time while you're in the human kingdom. But that name represented the ones that, according to T and O's belief, they were given to adopt to becoming adult members in the next level to finish their overcoming of this human kingdom. And then others are chiming in with different names.
Which Doe is the one that assigned those names.
Doe and T together.
Yeah, that's your.
And then Doe,
Course,
after T left,
correct.
he assigned some Odie names and changed some Odie names. Homelander says, yikes, and I just asked a hypothetical. If it's better, I'm happy to hear your personal feelings so you don't have to speculate for the class. Truthfully, there is no ill intent. I don't know. I'm okay. Strange, I don't know if you are talking about my question, but if you are, I would love to hear what you think is strange about it. I am wide open for rational discourse. I think I tried to talk about it, what was strange about it. I don't know if I got it across. Did it justice. I'm sorry if I didn't. No, I was talking about the question he just read out loud about the family being wiped out.
Oh. Being strucken down or something.
Right, which I don't have anything new to say to that, I don't think.
I didn't understand like the question as far as like did it was it Joseph that asked that? I don't know if
No,
Joseph.
strange and scary New England.
what would you do if the next level said that
Oh
your
no,
family was going to get struck down?
if the
So
next level told somebody that was in the class that some of their family was going to be wiped out or
I
struck
didn't.
down.
Well, I'm saying I don't know if that it was he referring to members of the class, or was it just referring to people in general. Like if next level came and said, your family's going to get hit by a tornado, like your family's going to be struck down, what would you do with that? Would you tell your family? Would you warn them? I don't know if that's what was the implication of that.
It's like saying, what are you going to do after you die? Or I don't know what the analogy would
I don't
be.
know. It's just ask. Just asking
I
a.
don't. It doesn't. It's a hypothetical. It just
That's
doesn't
why you
work.
do live streams, right? To answer people's questions
Yeah,
that they want
yeah,
your opinion on for certain
right,
things.
right.
So,
But I don't do well with hypotheticals.
right, it's true.
Okay, so and T and O didn't do well with hypotheticals in the classroom, so I got it
It's true.
from a good source. They like to see specifics of things that actually are happening.
And some
Now,
games got some games to play, which would be a hypothetical, I would say.
it's like a game to play.
Sometimes,
Sure.
Doe would say, "Let's play the game of,"
Oh,
you know,
yeah, yeah. He would think, what if we did this? What's the ramifications to it? Let's think about whether we do this or not. We form a church or not, or if somebody uh, did go to the doctor and got a certain diagnosis, would we do that diagnosis? Let's, think about the ramifications of things. But so that's in a way that we did do certain questions,
exploring
exploring things,
hypothetical
hypotheticals, right,
situations.
right. I'll answer your question with my opinion, though I believe it's one. I doubt they even second guessed.
Now that alarm was signifying.
Yeah, but if I'm gonna, the part where you're saying, you're putting in quotes that I think T and O said they know what they know not what they do. I don't think that applies to that analogy. I don't know how you could apply that to that analogy. I mean, you just did, maybe, if I got it right. It's hard to understand what people are saying in these little chats.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're just going to do the best we can, and we're going to bring the stream to an end. I'm getting kind of tired, even though a little drink of water might help finish. Right, so Homelander is talking about that he does that. He does what ifs. Um,
Which is fine, but I would say, I would ask you just to kind of switch your own computer up, your own thinking. Um, what's the benefit of doing like the what if scenario? So like as an Uber driver, there's like safety training that we're required to take to be able to pick up passengers in the state of Kentucky. And one of the things is learning, road training. And there's the what if strategy. And the what if strategy is asking yourself questions as you're driving. There's, a semi in front of you and a car that's the semi's in the right lane and the car is in the left lane and you're behind the car in the left lane and the car is driving and you go, what if the semi decided to cross over into that lane? How would I react to that? So that's an example of the what if, strategy. If you're coming to a four-way stop and there's four cars coming from all different, four directions and you go, what if that car ran the stop sign? How would I react to that? So that's the what if strategy, right? So one could conceivably, while you're driving, do that and completely drive yourself bonkers and mad. What if a plane falls out of the sky while I'm driving? What if a person runs out from the house that I can't see right now? what if a bird smashes,
Yeah.
so you can go from like extreme and drive yourself mad saying what if, what if, what if. How about just take things as they come, because you're already at a certain level in your life where you've learned how to handle things as they do come at you.
Right. I was
So
going to
instead of
say,
saying
to me,
what if
it's
this is
natural
going to
to.
happen, as it happens, say how what if this happened to a member of the next level? How would they handle it?
Right. That's one
If
way
you
to
have to
think.
keep asking yourself the what if question.
Yeah. Well, that would work. I mean, to think about how a next level member would do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he was doing in a sense. With the, I don't know if it was him or somebody else, but
Well, it's
you
like,
know,
what if this happened? How
right,
would I?
right. How would a member of the next level handle it? Well, uh, I would know that the lab, if they were in charge of
Like T and
doing
Joe would
something
say,
on the garden that
it's not
people could lose their
important to
lives
know.
from, that they know what they're doing. It's like
I guess I don't think I was getting my point out quite. Like, you can ask yourself what if so much that you're missing
yeah,
life going on right as it's happening in front of you.
yeah. You could go
That
to, but
you're so I'm not saying you personally, but that can become a thing that you get stuck in, to where like it's not really important to know like what if,
yeah. Okay, so
I'm not
what's
saying
your
that's not
plan
a
with
good
your
thing though.
vehicle? You're talking about my body? I guess that's what you're talking about because you don't know anything about the car that
Well, you
we
might,
drive.
because we do talk about the car quite a bit, but yeah, you could answer that either way.
um,
Are you going to eat something later after the stream? That's one of your plans with your vehicle.
yeah, I'm gonna eat something after the stream because I've exhausted a bunch of energy. But I don't have any other plan with my vehicle except to try to keep it as healthy as it can be for as long as possible.
Yeah,
As
because
long as
I'm only 51 and Sawyer's coming up on 73, 74.
79, 70, 100,
Oh my god.
70,000,
So we have to keep him as healthy as possible
17.
so he can stay alive until I die first.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens.
So I'm not without my partner.
Yeah.
But if whatever happens, happens.
Right. See, it
Now
doesn't
with the
matter.
car, we're not sure if we're gonna trade it in. We don't have no money. We're
Right.
hoping
Right.
the next level will make something happen. Can you get a new car with no money down?
Yeah. Right.
Not with
Anyway,
our
moving
credit.
on to Homelander. When your comment gets pulled, I think that's on purpose. We're not pulling any comments.
Did somebody's comment disappear?
Maybe.
Mm.
I don't know.
I haven't removed any comments. My name shows up. I'll show you guys how my name
I'll
shows
pull
up.
a comment if it's like really being nasty.
There might be somebody being nasty in there. We haven't
Oh,
really.
maybe haven't come upon it yet.
I don't know. My
You're
name.
welcome for answering, Homelander.
I'm gonna
Uh,
say hello. So my name comes up as
oh, Truth Everlasting is
Blue.
Booser,
Hey, what's going on?
a familiar name from the past, not too
Hello.
far past.
Hello, Scott
Uh,
and Angela and Nine.
no, I'll answer for Kathy. No, she wasn't in the class,
No, I was not.
and she didn't join Sawyer. Uh, there's nothing to join. We're together.
I joined Sawyer. Like that's what we say, right? We are a cult of two because everybody seems to want to say that we're trying to start a cult or something. Were you in the class at some point, or did you join Sawyer after the class ended and Sawyer was out and in the world? Yeah, I met Sawyer 4 years ago, three.
About
Yeah, four
coming
years ago
September though,
because we
right?
met in September of 2020.
Yeah.
And we've been together ever since.
Though changed some Odie names. Is there an example? Yeah, Annie Odie became Anal
Analody?
Anal Odie?
Analody? Like
Analody?
analog or something.
Analog Odie? Yeah, ANL.
Or
So
analytical?
ANY ODY became ANL ODY, right? There were some others, but I don't remember them off the top of my head right now. It was just a silly hypothetical. I didn't intend to be taken too literally. Yeah, I kind of be literal a lot. I'm kind of literal kind of guy. Carl already says, I'm really worried that I might have anxiety. Should I be concerned about this? I don't know what you're referring to. Oh, right. That's a joke, of course. You have anxiety about being anxious. Okay. Sorry, Carlotti. I
I
was
know, I
just.
was like, that does not sound like
Right.
something Carlody would say.
Well, we got it just now, so that was cool.
But if it is, if you're really worried that you might have anxiety.
Should I be worried about this? Should I be concerned about it? So Homelander says, absolutely,
Okay,
Kathy.
he's
What
joking. All right. I was like, Carlody, if you
if
should we
it's
throw out a
extremely
phone number?
unproductive?
Do you need
Right.
a hotline to call?
Ifing is
Should
is extremely unproductive,
joke
says
about
Homelander.
that.
What if question would drive someone crazy, says Scott. Addock. Oh. Steve
Yeah.
Jackson says, Sawyer, Analode, many names in the class. It seems first her human name, then Omega, then Anne. If I understood her correctly, and finally, did you and others have multiple names? Not except like I had Soyoti and Sawyer on the Beyond Human tapes.
But
And I used Sawyer at other times
in
in
the
the world, I
beginning,
guess.
like yeah, and your name was Bob and
Yeah, I had the name Philip at one
Philip,
point,
yeah.
and Bartholomew,
Yeah, so yes, you guys did
and
change names
I took my own
in the
names for the
beginning.
months that I was outside the classroom. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I wasn't connected with what T and Doe were doing with the organization of people that were all living outdoors and
Right,
knew
because
where they were going each time they would travel somewhere else
uh-huh.
around the U.S. I was separate from them for a long period of
You and
time.
your partner,
That with the partner that T
Dan
assigned me,
Doty?
Dan Doty, right? And
Yeah, I remember.
so during that time, I would just change my name because we would be walking into churches and stuff and asking for our needs and talking with preachers and things. And
Hmm.
so I just, they would say, what's your name, and I would say whatever I felt like to say at that time.
And there's in one of the tapes where he calls from his out of class task, and they're kind of joking that it's Bob, and which was funny.
I did?
Yeah, I guess you needed a
Oh,
ride or
right.
something.
Right, right. When was that?
Oh, I don't
A year ago?
know. I don't know. I shouldn't have
Or
brought it up if I didn't
was it
know.
after T left?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I honestly don't know. Sorry. It was in the last 200 and you know 40 tapes or so. Whenever that,
Okay.
I think T was still in her vehicle, and it was.
Oh, how did you know that? Sawyer was Philip Brown at one point. Probably heard me say it. I was Philip Brown. When I
And
took the name
Mark
Philip,
was Philip or something.
Mark, McCody he also had the name Philip at that time. And so Doe said since McCody was with the organization traveling around the country longer than I was, and I had just come back into the group through unusual circumstances, I asked for help into the heavens. And next thing I know, I was walking into the Oklahoma City Library where T and O were literally giving a meeting with 6 students, and from that, they sent me to be in the group that was uh, uh, um, that the group coordinators, what they were called, were Mercodi and Junodi, who were Mark and June in the Beyond Human series. So anyway, uh, so when I got back and then we met in Wyoming, Doug said that, why don't we call you Philip Brown? And so on some of the schedules, you will see PB in the spot, for when I was going to be consuming or in the lab working. And PB stood for Philip Brown. Anyway, and Mark continued with the name Philip. I don't know how that was. That was just probably a P. I don't know if there are other P's. But anyway, so I won't go there. Hello, Kathy Southwestern Colors. I see you in the chat. How'd you do
Yes.
that? Angela Anderson says, I just began my 62nd year. Congratulations. Carlotti
Yeah.
says, Steve Jackson, some use different names. Chuck Odie used Jennifer Goodman. Okay, there you go. Carl already said, was joking.
Okay, good. He's not worried about his anxiety. Our anxiety is perfectly normal.
Scott Adcock says, Sawyer, do you practice a musical instrument daily? No. I don't, but I was going to play music today, and I didn't do it. There you go. That's about the most I'm going to do right now, because the stream is about to be over.
I went up and down
Rick
a lot
Cody
of
was
hills
Rick Edwards,
today.
right? Well, he met with Bob Lazar. No, he met with uh, Bill Lear, the son of the Learjet founder, as the name Rick Edwards, and Bill Lear referred to him, I think, on the Paranet bulletin board service that was on the internet and maybe radio.
Hmm.
Carl says Lagodi was Logan Layson, right? He was that name. I think it's even talked about in the lawsuit. John Lear, right? Oh, he met with John Lear, and so the Learjet founder was probably the Bill Lear, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I got that all mixed up. Carloni, thanks for the update. What jar do you use for drinking water? Now,
Well,
so
since
you're talking about something that you're showing that you were one of my past viewers on occasion. So knew that I had this taller jar.
and
This one is
since
just a pickle jar.
because I'm a pickle addict and all of our jars are pickle jars
But I
now.
still have some of those tall jars.
Yeah, we got about 6 of
They
those
were
left.
salsa jars.
One is now a spider catch and release jar.
Scott Adda says the same after that. He says, I keep knocking my water over. Yeah, it helps to not do that when you have a wider bottom.
Yeah, spaghetti jars work. Get a
But
mason
the
jar.
problem is in the car, I use this kind of jar because it fits in the cup holder,
Yeah, they don't fit in our cup holders.
which I'm going to have the rest of this.
Coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
All right, folks. I know I didn't go through enough of the tape because there were so many things happening in the chat,
Well, next time.
but you can, yeah, there's more to cover on it. And lesson opportunities and lesson experiences for quite a few students. You hear from authority quite a bit. And
Well, we can do another stream and go over all that.
yeah,
I do, because, like, yeah.
Oh, you can't find them with mason jar lids?
Yeah,
Oh,
just get pickles and eat the pickles, and then that jar is good.
that's not a mason jar lid though. Mason jar lids are usually two parts and they're screw on like this and they're made out of this kind of goldish, whatever tin that is, you know.
Yeah, you don't know. These are, yeah, they're
And
just
sometimes they're
regular.
in two pieces, the mason jar, so you can lock it down, right? I
Yeah,
we
they've
used
got
to have a few
seals
of
and for
those, but I
canning
don't
and
have
stuff.
them anymore. Yeah, for canning. Can you say which state you guys are living in? Are you West Coast, Midwest? Just curious, Steve Jackson.
Right now we're by Cincinnati.
Yeah, so that's Ohio.
Well, yeah, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky.
Yeah, we circulate all around those areas. Right, mason jar lids are two parts. Right, I got it. I've used them. I've done some canning.
Steve Jackson,
Anyway,
we live in a RV. So we
yeah, we don't do any. Well, you still could do canning if we wanted to.
well no, I was just saying whoever asked where we're living. Like we don't
Yeah,
like right now we're in the 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 tri-state area of
right,
Cincinnati, or yeah, Cincinnati is the major base, and
right.
we'll be leaving, and it looks like we're headed to Savannah
Looks like we might be.
for a little
Okay.
bit of the winter at least, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess. Right.
It all depends on if I can book the campground,
Yeah, right.
and hopefully I can because we like Savannah in the winter. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, we're mobile, and it's lifestyle. It is fun. I mean, we like it, but we're not doing it for recreation,
No, it's a challenge like when your $3,000 fridge breaks.
and you don't have the money for
Yeah.
it. But it helps us adjust to different circumstances, right? So we
That's
don't.
right.
So we do things in different ways.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know about the lid being in two parts until I went to buy jars for drinking. I got you, Scott. Okay, well, I'm going to say goodnight, right? Good night, folks.
Bye. Thank you. Sorry I talked so much.
I'm not sorry.